Will you join me in prayer, please? Holy One, we have heard your word beautifully and wonderfully proclaimed. May that word come to the center of our hearts as we seek your peace in Jesus. Amen. Tonight I want to begin my meditation by asking for your help. I need you to do two things. You think you can handle that? And I need you to do them at the same time. Can you handle that? The first thing I need your help with is to take a single word from the traditional Christmas story and pretend with me that you are holding it in your hand in just the same way you would hold a small stone or a little seashell. Do you have the idea? Got it right here? The word is in the 8th verse of the 2nd chapter of the Gospel of Luke. The word I want you to hold gently in your hand and closely to your heart is the word abide. Abide. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, watching over their flock by night. Will you please hold the word abide in your hand? That's the first thing. And the second thing I want you to do, as I begin my meditation, is to ask you to remember something that most of you might have forgotten. But I want you to remember, and if at all possible, tonight or tomorrow, find a child and tell them about what you remembered. It will help them so much to know that a grown-up once felt the same way. Here's the second thing. I want you to remember what it was like to be afraid of the dark. Really afraid. You haven't? Have you recovered? Have you recovered what that was like? Please hold that feeling of being afraid in one hand, and in the other hand, one word from the story, the word abide. And while you are remembering and holding that word abide, I'm going to tell you a story I heard some years ago, and the people who shared this story with me promised that it was true. Among certain tribes of the indigenous people of North America, there is a rite of passage through which a child becomes an adult member of the tribe. In this rite, they're taken miles and miles into the forest, blindfolded, just as night is falling. Led by the adults of the tribe deep into the woods, just as darkness is complete, the child is left in the center of the forest, sitting, still blindfolded, on a tree trunk. Before the elders of the tribe leave, they tell the child that no matter what happens in the night, no matter what noises you hear, no matter what animal sounds they encounter, they are not to remove the blindfold until dawn breaks. Now, are you still holding those two things in your hands? Got them there? Please continue to hold them and consider what the child in this story must be feeling. Think about the night sounds and the insect sounds and the sounds of large animals moving around at night in the forest. Think about, please, all the things that made you afraid of the dark. Think about the tricks imagination can play on us in the dark, and then consider how long a night can be when you imagine that you are alone. A little child, blindfolded, sitting on a log in the deep, deep forest. What's my point? Here's my first point, and it's not pretty. I think I could make a pretty good argument that from a negative point of view, this story, as far as I've told it, is a chillingly accurate picture of the human condition. Every one of us in this room tonight has things in our lives which make us afraid and uncertain. Did you ever feel that like you were being blindfolded and led around in the forest by things beyond your control? I feel that way. I feel that way when I listen to some of our leaders tell us what their plans are for the rest of us. I feel it when I see a world that totters from one disaster to the next with multiple wars and poverty. I feel it. I feel it in the hearts of stretched caregivers and old hurts too tightly held. I see it in those who lose sleep every night over situations they cannot change, or worse, caught in the trap of self-blame. If you are a parent, do you ever worry about the future in which your children will be living? Please don't get me started on grandparent worry. Well, here's my second point. That story about the little one left in the woods, as far as I told it, may well be an accurate picture of the human condition and the tougher parts of many of our lives. But it is not, dear ones, the whole story. Your story, my story, your worry, my worry, your pain, your fear, my fear, are only part of the story, and the rest of the story, the best part of the story, is found right in the heart of the Christmas story. Now let me tell you what I mean and what I believe. I began tonight asking you for your help. Remember, I asked you to hold two things in your hands. You remember, don't you? The first was one word from the Christmas story, and the second was a single memory. A short time ago, we left a little child blindfolded out in the middle of the dark woods with animals prowling and howling and things going bump in the night. I asked you to remember what it was like to be afraid of the dark. I asked you to remember what it was like for you, so you could understand what it was like for the child to be out there in the woods. Well, here's the rest of the story. After a long, long, long night, according to the initiation rite of the tribe, the child lifted the blindfold from their face and looked around in the growing light of a dawning new day. As their eyes came into focus, sitting at the other end of the log, where they had been the entire night, was a parent. Their own parent, who had, throughout those long hours of darkness and fear, been silently watching over their beloved child the entire night. That child's loving parent was abiding. Like a good shepherd, they were abiding. Like the God who loves you and me as if we're the only ones to live, they were abiding. Quietly holding vigil in the center of whatever it is that troubles our souls and separates us from one another. Pain separates, the peace that only God can give abides. Hurt, the hurt we have, the hurt we sometimes inflict on others, separates. The harmony and the wholeness of love abide, holds and heals. Fear, and all those things which make us afraid in this world of ours cloud our vision and enable us to see enemies when Jesus wants us to see friends. Fear separates. Love abides. Go gently. Go gently into this precious night and into the coming days of a new year, knowing that the love and power of God abides with you and around you and within you. May the one born this night be born again in our living as we find new ways to abide with those whom we love and with this good world, that despite all the evidence to the contrary, a world full of people waiting, just waiting to experience